Welcome back to the Something Like the Offseason podcast. I'm your host, Micah, nicknamed Musa, and today I'm bringing you a conversation with my guy, Charles Robinson. Charles was an incredible football player in his days at Duke University, and is one of those athletes that had the foresight to get moving on his post-ball life very early on, as he made sure to take advantage of the network and education offered to him in a place like Duke. He leveraged that experience to become a rock star in the investment and business world. I'll let him tell you about that. I love getting to ask him how he came into that mindset early on. We got into a lot of different topics that are super helpful for anyone in any career, not just those transitioning from one field to the next. He talks about being the person you eventually want to become, why and how you should ask for what you want, having awareness of yourself, and a whole bunch of more knowledge and wisdom that I think you'll find valuable. As always, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you and encourage you to use the links in the show notes to go explore and follow everything and everywhere that the Something Like the Offseason podcast is putting out content as we get this show up and running. Without further ado, here's my conversation with the one and only Charles Robinson. All right, here we go. Question number one. What was the moment in high school you knew you were destined for college ball?
Man, so the funny thing is, there were a couple moments where I felt like I was destined for college ball. So when I was thinking about it, I was trying to pick out that one moment, but I remember we played Plant City. I'm from Florida.
Right.
And the running back was like ranked number 3 in the country or something like that.
It's crazy.
And coming out of Florida, we had a lot of players that were just like crazy. And my coach was just telling me like, oh, he's like number 3 in the country and all this stuff. He was averaging like 200 yards per game. And, I had made it my goal because I was like a safety / I played like everything.
Yeah.
And that game, I had tied my high school record for the most tackles. And it was like 16 tackles. And then also most tackles for loss. And I had 2 interceptions. And yeah, but it for me, it didn't even come off like it was that difficult. It was more so like I was determined that I wasn't coming out the game under any circumstances.
Right.
And if at any point this dude touched the ball, I'm like all in his grill. Like I'm just like, I was just like, it ain't happening, none of that. So when that happened, I was like, yo, it's not even when I recognized like this is my will against their will, like whatever I decide I want to do, I can do. And when that flicked for me, it wasn't even about big time ball. It was just more so like, oh, I can impose my will on whoever I want. I just got to make sure like I'm locked in. So that's when I felt like I was ready for like the college next level.
Shout out to Plant. That's in Tampa, right?
Yeah, Plant City, yeah.
Shout out to Plant. Shout out to Eborg. Okay, second question. Name an athlete that you felt was your toughest comp, right? Whether it be high school, college. Who was that player that you were like, this person is crazy?
Oh, shoot, bro.
Like just the toughest one or like top 2?
Bro, the toughest one, when I say comp, like the hardest person to bring down was Devin Hester. So, bruh, no cap. You could, like, people who watch this podcast, Google Devin Hester.
I was just about to say the punt return.
Bruh. Luckily, I wasn't on that play that got put on the video, so you ain't gonna see number 45 on there. No cap, you ain't gonna see me out there.
We're definitely
gonna
edit
there's some plays that they
bro.
don't show. There's some plays that he don't show that he was like getting us on the offensive end too. Like they would just kept doing these bubble screens. And literally, because I study film like crazy.
Right.
I know when they had a formation, like when they had a 21, like I know what they about to do. Especially got Devin Hester out there, and you know it. So like I'm already cheating over towards what a bubble screen coming because he's like the furthest to the field. So I literally just run to him and I hit him. I wrap him up, and it's like I don't even know. It just slipped. No. Yeah, I don't even know, man. That was probably like one of the the toughest
Yeah.
people to like bring down on the tackle side. And then I never feel the same time he was on the field, but like the most dominant competitor, like straight up villain gladiator, just the grimiest player I've ever played against was Virginia Tech Chancellor, the safety.
Damn. Oh my God. He was a superhero.
Bro,
He was a
no
superhero.
cap,
He made no
no
sense.
lie, no lie, this is what he did. 3 plays in a row, intentionally. The first drive, plays in a row, got a late hit penalty on our quarterback until they put him out the game. Literally, Thad Lewis threw it.
Oh, yeah, shout out to Dad.
Yeah, that's my brother.
That's
You know
right.
what I'm
Dad
saying?
was in Cleveland with me.
Okay,
Shout out
that's
to
what's up. Small
yeah.
world.
Yeah.
So Thad's my brother, man. Shout out to my
Yeah.
boy Thad, man. If you get a chance to listen to this, tell nothing but love, Brody. Hit my line. We gonna reconnect. And I wish I was on offense because we would have been thumping if he would have hit my boy like this, man. But literally, like, I hope, like, you probably can still Google the game if it's probably Duke versus Virginia Tech. He threw the pass. It's like 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000. Boom! Hit him, flag. Next play, same thing. We did like a little handoff, like a little draw
Yeah.
handoff.
Yeah.
1 1,000, 2 1,000. Boom! I'm surprised they didn't put him out the game. And then the third one, it was like 2 plays later. Hit him late. He was coming off a blitz. Put him out the game. And literally, he walked through our old lineman. That's when I was like, bro, man, we can't be moving like this, man. We ain't got. I was like, man, I know this is Duke, but man, we gotta start, grabbing some hood dudes, man, on line, bro. Because they just like he literally like got up, walked through our line like bumping shoulders, and I was like, yo, this guy's a gladiator, bro. Like
Cam
he had
Chancellor, Cam Chancellor, the Legion of Boom was like, he just didn't make any sense because he was like 6'4", 235, like
no sense.
No body fat, fast, quick, strong, explosive, intelligent. He was just like a creative player. He was like literally a creative player,
bro.
That's wild.
And he had the tenacity of.
That's what I'm saying. He had an attitude,
lion, bro. Yes, he was mad. He was mad. I remember I went on a recruiting trip to Miami, and I saw Ed Reed, and I saw how big these dudes were, like Winslow, like all these dudes.
I'm a soldier.
But the big difference was that Cam's attitude was way crazier than everybody. It's like he was just like he had a vendetta. So yeah, that was the other player that I felt like was probably the toughest person, like physically, stature wise, but then also just mentally was just a madman.
He was on another level. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Now this is one of my favorite questions. Question number 3. Name a player that you played with in high school or college that you felt like never really got their fair shake.
Man,
could have been something.
In high school, Mike Ford, my cousin Mike Ford,
a running back.
Yes.
He went to USF.
Yes.
He was nice.
Man, my cousin Mike Ford, man, he was a dog.
Yeah.
Man, I tell you, and the crazy part, he had a scholarship. Well, I ain't trying to put his stuff out, but it's like, he had a scholarship to Alabama. Well, actually, he had a scholarship to everywhere.
He was crazy.
And he committed to Alabama, and he was trying to get his scores taken care of, but ended up going to UCF after going through, I think it was JUCO. But when I tell you, man, God-given talent, like, he just woke up and was like, all right, I can run a 4.3. And, like, he would come, like literally, we were in high school. He would come over to my house, and I've been trying to dunk for so doggone long, bro.
Right.
He just come in, drop step. 9th grade. Boom! Oh, like, no way. Then, because he a year younger than me, he come in, we had track, come in, runs like the preheat, and then the final, this dude run a 10.7.
That's crazy. 10.7 freshman is wild. That's crazy.
Crazy.
That's crazy.
Just God get, like, literally, like, he don't, like, never practiced, none of that. It was just straight up God-given talent. That's the thing. Just never tried. This was just like God-given talent. So I would say, man, like it's one of those things where it's just like or Adrian Peterson. Like it's one of those things. Like, man, like I wish I would have been able to see this man take it to the next level, stay healthy, all of that stuff. So I would shout out my cousin Mike Ford.
Shout out to Mike Ford. I remember the name just off of strength. That's crazy.
Bro.
I didn't even.
He broke Emmitt Smith's record for the most consecutive 200-yard games in a row.
That's what I'm saying. I remember that crazy. That was like the Rivals era. I was like, yo, who is Mike Ford? This brother is wild. That's wild. Okay. Next question. Question number 4. What is the nicest thing a coach has done for you?
Man, shout out to Coach Anderson. I definitely want him to be able to see this. Well, one, it's difficult because I want to, point out quite a bit of coaches.
Yeah.
In this, but like Coach Ward was the coach that kind of pretty much let me know, like, hey, man, I know you think it's sweet, but you up against a lot of stuff that you don't see, my man. Like,
right. This was
and that's being a black athlete. This is high school.
High school, Coach Ward. Okay.
Yeah, Coach Ward. These are my high school coaches, and then I'll tap into some of my college schools. But my transformation really was my high school, years. So it was Coach Ward, Coach Rowe. He's the one that literally opened up the matrix for how to read a line in the scrimmage. Like anybody who watched me on film, I immediately knew whether it was a pass or run. And then after that, I would just take what I looked at the sets, and then I took that to college with me because the same thing. It was like you just watch the guard, immediately watch the guard. The guard has, because if you have a 3 technique in front, I know we're getting technical, but like if you have a 3 technique in front of him, he has to be able to beat his guy. So he's going to give you immediately, especially if you got an athletic 3 technique, it's automatically going to like give you the read. Yeah, so he's gonna have if it's a run, he's gonna have to, and it's coming his side, he's gonna have to go down immediately. Right now. Yeah. It's coming down this way. If he gotta beat the pass, he's gonna show up his chest immediately. So that was the other person. And then Coach Sprague, that was the guy that was kind of the general of it all. He really didn't have to work too hard because he always had like some really dominant players, but there was a lot of things that didn't go through. The other 2 coaches that didn't go to my high school was Coach Fred Gilmore and Coach Corey Richardson. During the summers, he would take all the black athletes. So all the athletes, Sam Shields, Baraka Atkins, like all the Sarasota athletes that came out was because of Corey Richardson, God rest his soul. All of us was fast because of him.
What's his name? Corey's what?
Coach Richardson, Corey Richardson.
Okay, got you.
He literally would have us do 100 meters jump roping. Like we're running and we had to run jump roping 100 meters. And that's how we learned how to be fast. Literally. And his son was super fast too, man. Shout out to Corey as well, man. Like his son won the state running a 10-4. But like literally he took a group of black athletes who were in a similar area. And some of us went to Booker, some of us went to Riverview. Mike kind of bounced all over the place, was like, good. Riverview, Booker, and Sarasota kind of tapped in all of them. But that was the other one. And then the last one, going back to the nicest thing, well, I would say the best thing was Coach Anderson. Like, to this day, like, I try, like, at least once a year to send him a card, letting him know, like, I will not, like, I can say this on record, I would not be where I am without this man. And he's the reason why I went to Duke in regards to like my choices. And, it's one of those things where even when I got to Duke, I had the opportunity to reinvent myself. He always told me, like, Charles, like when you get there, you could become anything you want to be because nobody knows who you are. And that's where I was given opportunities to do a lot of different things. And the other person too that was also like a lot of guys come out from Coach A was John Haskins, and his wife. They set me up with so much. So That's who it is, man. Coach A, man, he's the GOAT.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people that has come out of his tutelage that has changed the lives of so many. His name is Jim Anderson.
got it.
Uh, for everybody, even Mike, my cousin Amari, like there are a lot of people who will validate what I'm saying in that vein.
Fire, fire, fire. All right, appreciate it, man. We're gonna
Yeah,
move
man.
over. That was good. We're gonna move over to the next set of questions and stuff like that. So I'm gonna kick it off. I'm gonna kick it off here right now with this one. So, listening to you talk, it's evident that, you're coming from Florida. So anybody who knows anything about college football knows every college football team has at least 20 kids like from Florida, right? Like I'd be willing to
Yep.
argue like a quarter of every D1 Power 5 program has Florida talent. So with that being said,
Yep.
I already know there's just an assumption, expectation that okay, I'm going to the L right after I'm done playing college ball. You're in the ACC when the ACC is like the biggest conference. This is like peak Miami, like you said. They had Hester, Winslow, right? Velma, like the Monstars, right? Like the whole the
Nasty.
whole team is like first, second rounders. You're playing at Duke. You're seeing these guys, all the other different teams, Tech and all this type of stuff. Talk me through your last game at Duke and where your mind was as far as like league and everything else. Because you're clearly brilliant and intelligent. But talk to me about like where your mind was on that last game and what you were thinking.
Well, shoot, man, keeping it funky with you, bro. My body was beat up. So after my last game, I was like, bruh, I am done. I like, you know what I mean? And like context. So it's like I had torn ligaments in my hand, my foot. I had surgery on my knee. Like I tell people all the time, it's like, you know, everybody has a body clock. I don't care how talented you are. You think about Ray Lewis, who tears his bicep at year 20 in the NFL, and then it just goes downhill from there. Then you got the Greg Odens of the world, and you got some high school players who just never get a chance to see college. Like everybody has, I think about Derrick Rose, who came in, was like the rookie of the year, and now he had a bunch of these injuries, and he's kind of like not the same. So that was me, coming into college. And then also, I wasn't one of those guys who was like the Mike Fords of the world,
Right.
who was just blessed like to just run a 4.3 just because.
Right.
I worked hard and I could run like a 4.47 and things like
Yeah.
that. And I was like built and stuff like that. But I had to work my butt off to get there. So at the end of the game, we were playing UNC. We lost in overtime. There's a picture of me. I forget his name. I think his last name was Hill, number 8. I already knew the play. It was a draw.
Yeah.
And shout out to my boy Glenn Williams. This is picture where I hit him. I hit number 8. I can't remember his last name. I think it was Hill. And I was about trying to bring on, and Glenn came and hit me
And
on the side, and then he kind of took it to the hut. And at the end of it, it
guilty.
was a bittersweet moment. Where I was like, after the game, we were at UNC. I was looking around, you know, taking it in, took a deep breath, let it out, and I was like, it's that thing. I was like, I felt that peace. You know what I mean? I didn't feel the thing, and of course, like my uncle was like, all right, man, all right, getting ready for the league, man. Let's
Mhm.
go ahead. And I was like, you know what? Nah, man, I don't think I'm gonna do that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I'm a big believer in like, things happen for a reason. And, I was building relationships with folks that weren't athletes at Duke.
Right.
And I started to see, and then also, like I was telling you before, with like John Haskins and his wife, Alyssa, she opened me up to a world in investment banking.
Mm.
She worked at Goldman Sachs,
Right.
and she talked to me about the Wall Street Journal and, blue chip stocks and all of this stuff. And I didn't even know about any of this stuff. I was going to like, what do these call it? These info sessions for Goldman Sachs, JP
Right.
Morgan.
Right.
And that's where for me, I've realized like, yo, like I have an opportunity to make just as much as some of these athletes and never do another tackle. So
Right.
When I walked away, man, it was just like, all right, I'm good. And by that point, I fully reinvented myself to have optionality from my coach.
But
Because at
Charles,
first, when
hold
I
on, hold
came
on.
in,
Was
yeah,
it that easy? The way you're making it sound is like there's the last game, you know, you friendly fire, you lose the game against UNC, you look around the stadium, and then 24 hours later you were like, cool. Is that how it went?
nah, like I see what you're saying. Like in
Okay.
that moment, I had accepted accepted like I wasn't going to go forward, and I was like, I was cool with that.
Wow.
But you also got to remember too, and be keeping it funky. We were
Yeah.
getting our ass whooped at Duke. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Coach Cut came and turned it around, man. But after a while, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Imagine, okay, let's put this in perspective for the folks that are going to be looking at this, right? Imagine you're in the ACC, so you playing Calvin Johnson, you playing like the Hall of Famers of like a lot of these players that we see that we use in Madden and all this other stuff, right? And you're working just as hard as them. You're doing two-a-days, you're doing hell week in the winter, you waking up at 6 a.m., getting like thrashed in the gym. I mean, in the weight room. And you go out and you lose. And after a while, it's like it starts to feed on you. And it's not like, because I never was like a complacent guy, but it was like one of those things where it just starts to, it just mentally starts to fatigue your mind. It's like, man, all right. And then the last straw was like we lose in overtime against UNC. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, because my boy hits me on the side, it was like, come on, man. I was just I was just like, all right, I'm over this, bro. So that's
That's
the
good.
reason, like, if we pull it in full context, that's the reason why I was kind of like, it wasn't like this, like, notebook dramatic thing. It was really just like, I was pissed off, and I was like, you know what? You know, you so mad, you just like,
Right. You just like,
all right,
okay, there's nothing I can do
all
with
right.
this. Right.
Yeah, there's nothing I'm going to do with this anymore. I'm done.
Right. Fair, 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 fair. So prior to Duke, was iBanking ever on your mind? Like, what was?
I had gold teeth in my mouth and long hair. I was a Floridian boy through and through, man. Like, ain't no way. Like, I think I told my mom one time, I was like, Mom, I got a internship with Goldman Sachs. She said, "Oh, that's what's up, baby. Like, who's Goldman Sachs?" Like she was just like legitimately like asking me, like,
Right.
okay, like this is dope. Like, tell me more.
Right.
So it wasn't even in like I don't even know, even to this day, some of my friends who are my age don't even know like investment banking really
Right.
does, or Goldman or JP Morgan. They probably heard of them like banks like Bank of America or Wells
Right. Right.
Fargo. But there's a retail side,
Retail.
there's an
Yeah.
investment banking side, there's M&A, there's uh, trading. There's so much that I just wasn't exposed to. So no, I had no clue. And again, like I lucked up again having someone like a John Haskins and Alyssa, to open that door up to me. Because even though I was reading this stuff, I still didn't understand what they were talking about.
It's one thing. So that you bring up something interesting. It's one thing to be exposed to something. It's another thing entirely to kind of dig into it, right? And like allow
For
yourself
sure.
to immerse yourself in this environment. So you go to Duke, clearly brilliant to getting to Duke, right? Talk to me about, put yourself in the mindset of someone who's just going to college right now. You mentioned that you were taking advantage of connecting with other people who weren't necessarily playing ball. Talk to me about your mindset and what would you tell
Yep.
someone who's younger going to college where they might not know everybody, might not know everything, but, or just getting acclimated. Talk to me about how you would want them to socialize.
Man, that's a great question, bro. Amazing question. So there's a couple of ways I could go about it. One is be the person who you eventually want to become. Don't pretend to be. Actually be that person. It's a decision. Then when you are that person, who you want to become, you're doing a set of actions that will eventually get you there.
Right.
Whether it's learning a skill, whether it's being around people who typically are around these people when they are like, I made it seem like, man, I'm gonna be a multimillionaire. I
Right.
knew that that's something of mine, whether I played football or not. Like, and then I just started being around my friends. You know, his dad was the president of GM. Another friend was what not a ambassador. What do they call him? I guess an ambassador.
Yeah, like an ambassador.
Yeah, but it's like from like a different country. It's like had another friend whose dad was like a general for the Israeli army, and he would always like do trading like while we in school. These were my friends that like
people didn't play football.
None of them played football,
Right.
Not once. But I was like they got benefit of it because like, oh, it's the athlete. Now we got the girls there and stuff like that. And then I'm sitting there. I'm like, yo, like, what does that mean when people say trust fund, baby? And then they'll say it, and I still don't understand what it means. And I'm like, all right, cool. I just keep it in the back of my head.
Right.
And then we're just doing things. And then my other buddy, shout out to my boy Edon. This dude, we would be in class, and he'd be trading while we're in class. Like he'd be talking to you like, hey man, like. I'll place this trade. You want to do 500? Like, boom, boom, boom. So me and my other boy, Aaron Glover, he was an athlete. We would always joke like, all right, man, drop me in, you know what I'm saying, for a quick 1,000. We know we were just being funny. But I'm looking at his stuff. You know, he was doing on Ameritrade, which is like Thinkorswim now. Thinkorswim is the platform now. But he was doing this stuff, and I'm just seeing all these different things and candlesticks and all this other stuff. And he's just making these trades while we in class. And again, and he's still one of my boys to this day. So anyways, I say all that to say that's the first part I want to get people to understand. It's like where you are, you're surrounded around a network of people who have family members, not just the kids, but who have family members who are doing things to set their children up to where you want to set your children up. So, part A is be the person you want to become. Don't feel like you got to pretend. Just make the decision. And even if it's the NFL, like, all right, I'm an NFL player. Like, I can't be out here,
Partying.
And it's harder because of Instagram, because you think like there's a lot of cap that's going on, so you get confused. Yeah. So it's a little difficult, right? But it's like I say to them, like, look at what's in front of you and what's real and what you can see. Believe nothing what you can hear and only half of what you can touch.
Right. Ooh.
And that's the thing that I think if you go into it, start to ask questions, be around the people that you perceive have things going on, and then just peep the game. And then eventually it'll start to, like a language, like a baby doesn't know how to speak a specific language. They were just immersed in that area. And then they eventually start to learn the language and things become more simple. So once I did that,
to absorb it, right? It's, the compounding effect of your immediate environment, right? So if I'm around all of this, then I'm naturally.
And then don't be afraid to say what you want. So for me, the only reason why I jumped into banking, like my mom, I got engaged, going into my 5th year. And my mom was like, baby, aren't you going to, look for a job? And I was like, you know what, you're right. And instead of like my natural inclination, like, oh, go home, grab a few things that my partners do. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just ask my friends what jobs did they get. He's like, oh man, I got this amount of money from Goldman. I got this amount of money from JP. And I have never heard 6-figure anything. That's the stuff that we heard growing up on movies. No cap. They'll be like, oh man, I got a 6-figure.
That was
I remember
huge.
Boomerang.
That was huge.
So I'm like, oh, you got $100 and something $1,000. Let me see your resume.
Right.
And I looked at his resume and I saw the things that he was talking about he did. I'm like, man, I'm an athlete. I'm working 16-hour days and still got to do work. Right. So I just took like those different blocks and just applied my skill set to those things. Wow. And then eventually I had something that was comparable, but it took the framework. So again, going back to your original question with the athletes, I would say, man, like, be a businessman and also be a great player. Like you can do both because now with the NIL, you are a business. Right. And now you have to surround yourself around people that have the business acumen. And if you are in a Power 5 school, leverage the fact that you have the social capital. Like Be intentional about the people that you let around you. Start to have those folks
Right.
around you, and don't get caught up in this facade. Like, oh man, you switching up, you Hollywood. The reality is, the same friends that are talking that way, you're going to end up helping them long term,
Right.
anyways. So you got to see the vision beyond that, and got to put yourself in position to win.
I love it. I love it. Talk to me about the fact that, you're diving into the deep end, right? Like when people hear anything like quantitatively oriented, they think, oh man, you have to be a whiz kid. And obviously you've got that base level of like intelligence. No one's debating ever like Charles Robinson's a brilliant brother. But talk to me about you not having that background, you joining the iBanking world, you don't know poop from sugar, right? Talk to me
Yeah.
about what about your football experience helped prepare you for iBanking, because that's like it's a whole nother world, a whole nother monster. That talk to me about it.
Yeah, bro. So one, the thing that as an athlete, no matter whether you tired, whether you pissed off, whether you went drinking the other night, whether you were out, with your friends, you show up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then you doing what you doing until 6 o'clock at night on an easy day. And that's in the real world. That's easy in the real world. Like, we were doing from 6 to like 9. You know what I'm saying? Because we had a study hall, so it's
Right.
like 9, 10 o'clock. So it's like the first part is you stepping into the real world, knowing that you got an advantage that ain't like, this is easy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just showing up is easy. It's light work. That's one. Two, I'm gonna keep it funky. It's difficult to learn the language, and you're going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to be the lowest on the totem pole in regards to your ability to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes back to what I said before. Don't be afraid to ask what you want. If you want to be an expert in this space, so this is literally verbatim what I said to everybody when I started off. I said, man, just speak English to me, bro. My MD, I said the same thing. I'm like, hey man, you my guy. Just speak English. What does it say in English?
Right.
And he'll laugh, and it became like like a joke thing.
Right.
That was like, oh man, Charles got the balls to talk this way and da 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 da. And I'm like, nah, I was legitimately saying like, what does this mean in English? Literally, and I've taken that even in an investment world that I do now.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I have a technical founder and he starts, like, for example, I was at a dinner last night. One of my boys, shout out my boy JK, the Coinbase, he was talking about like something off the block, and I was like, bro, like, speak English to me, bro. Like what it says is even a 5-year-old. He broke it down to me at different points how you can make money, like almost
Right.
like trading on the market. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So I say you're not going to have those skill sets. You're not going to be able to come in and on that. But the phrase you should use is, hey, bro, I understand, but speak English to me. Because the reality is most people are going to try and lie and act as if they know, and they won't get as far. And nobody really knows anything and I'm on the other side of the curtain. I promise you, everybody is guessing and trying to figure it out. They're just
Right.
really educated guess basis off of previous experiences,
Right.
but they're guesses. And if it's wrong, they know enough because of their experience how to pivot without being on the long pivot curve.
Right.
They can pivot to a point where it's like, oh, well, I'm gonna pivot here, and then they can keep moving forward. Versus like, all right, should I pivot here, pivot here? But that's where you learn, because your ability to show up
Right.
and work through it, your advantage. But if you add this one piece of getting people to speak English to you and break it down to the simple and not worry about your ego,
Right.
you're going to be so much better than most people, even when you're in college transitioning out.
I love that, but talk to me about some people. It might be difficult for them to take that next step, right? So already saying, all right, I'm going to go into iBank, and that's one thing, right? And so often in football, coaches like, this is the technique. This is what we're trying to do. I've taught you this. There's a point where it's like, you have to figure it out. And a lot of times we just self-correct and figuring out on our own, right?
Yep.
Talk to me about ways in which you've seen people build that sort of confidence. Because it's odd to say, because if you're a collegiate athlete, you're intrinsically like confident because you can't do anything without being confident. But talk to me about how you built up the nerve to be able to say in those new arenas, hey, speak English to me. Because some people might have a perspective of like, well, I don't want to go out there and I don't want people thinking I'm simple. I mean, you talked about it a little bit, but just talk to me about some of the things you did, if anything, to build it up.
Man, I love how this all ties together, man. You remember what I said before? Be the person you want to become.
Right.
I already know because of my friends whose dads were the presidents of the GMs, they didn't know it. And they told the people that, but because
Right.
they were the boss, they told the people that they hired that's smarter than them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember one of my friends' dads said, "Hey, man, always remember to try and hire people that's smarter than you."
Mm.
And I was like, okay, cool. So I know if someone's smarter than me, I still can be a leader. But
Right.
again, it goes back to what I said before: be, and I mean it, not pretend. Actually, be the person you want to become. So when I ask these questions, speak English to me, I'm talking as if I'm the boss of the MD.
Talk about
Now
it.
I'm not saying like you still understand like hierarchy being an athlete.
Yeah.
It's
As
almost
long
like
as
a
you
soldier.
recognize, yeah.
Yeah, you still got to
Right.
work and still got to do things. So you got to read the room. You can't just be coming with this bravado and being like delusional, like, oh,
There's
I
an
run
EQ
this spot.
element
Like,
attached to this as well, right?
yeah,
It's
you got
not,
to have that type of
it's
EQ.
not
I want
limited to just jumping in here like, yo, I'm here.
to get fired. but be the person you want to become. So whatever that is. So for me, I did not know where I wanted to go. I was all over the place.
Right.
But I knew what I wanted to be. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be someone who had financial freedom. I wanted to be somebody that led um, a lot of people.
Right.
What we're doing right now is a manifestation of who I have become, and I'm still am being who I ultimately want to be. I want to be a billionaire, but
Right.
the reality is that is so difficult. And there's so much amount of risks, and there's so much things that I'm learning now on my journey where people talking about betting on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, like what that means, like being able to take the risks and how much money you got to put
Right.
in to try and raise funds and all of
Right.
this stuff so you can play this game. And if
Right.
you don't have enough funds,
Right.
like being honest with yourself, going the same thing that I'm telling people on this that's looking at this now, I'm going through it like lather, rinse, repeat. So
Right.
there's a lot I don't know. Like I don't know how to raise a fund when you're spending more money than you're getting in.
Right.
But if I'm humble enough to say, you know what, I know billionaires who do this right now,
All day, every
like
day,
legitimately,
with a
all day,
smile
every
on their
day.
face.
Yeah, and they got the bravado to say, all right, this is what I need.
Right. I love it.
And that's how I move in the same way.
And that's amazing. That brings me to my next point. You're in iBanking, you're crushing it, you're doing well, and then you decide to leave. Right? Like a lot of people say, man, look, not too many things bigger than JP Morgan, right? Than Goldman Sachs, right? Like we started to talk about those upper echelon iBanking jobs. You not knowing poop from sugar, once again, sign up, compete, perform, excel, and then decide you want to leave. What would kind of went into that thought process, right? And like, why would you leave somewhere where you already had such a great reputation and you were doing so well? I'm curious.
Man, so one, I was in during the crash, so 2008. Everybody was
Right.
getting into M&A during that time. One of the things that I absolutely couldn't stand was getting yelled at every single day for something that I did not do. So, Fidelity. So Fidelity, the Johnson family were getting these ridiculous service level agreements, and if we didn't hit a certain target, they would lose money on the agreement that they set up. And then we would get yelled at for not getting things across the finish line, but it was almost like these impossible tasks. So for me, I was like, man, like in football, you get yelled at all the time. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, but it's different. Like I'm around a bunch of civilians. I'm like, man, you 5'10", 150. It's only so much MFs I'm gonna get in this space before I'm gonna turn up. Oh, you know what I'm saying? So, like I already started to associate like, all right, this might not be the spot for me, man, because it's like, if I'm gonna get talked to like this, man, like I gotta be some type of
I need
transaction
more
type
ownership.
thing. Yeah, I need something.
Yeah,
I wasn't even thinking about ownership at the time. I was just thinking like self-preservation. Like I ain't trying to fight, like, because still you got to remain humble. But it's
right.
like You can respond back to like, man, I'm trying, man. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like you can respond, and the coach like, hey, go take your ass around the thing. You gotta go run a lap or something like that. You can't do that in a professional setting.
No.
You know what I mean? You get, and you being black, 6'2", and at the time, because when I first graduated, I hadn't lost all this weight. I was still like 235.
Oh wow.
So I'm like,
and you're in
so
office.
I'm still
You're in office with this.
exactly. So
you barely in the,
I'm trying to code switch to kind of like make sure, and I've learned to kind of be myself now because I'm just who I am.
Right.
But at the time, I was still trying to figure myself out. So those are the things that I was coming up with, those incongruencies, and it was just difficult. And one of my buddies had already left, and I asked him what did he have. Like I said, it's always been my friends and asking questions. And when he left, I text him like, "Yo, man, like, where'd you leave and what'd you have like in store?" He was like, "Man, I ain't have nothing. Like, I just saved up."
Faith.
And he's like, "I'm gonna figure out, what I want to do." And at the time, like, making six figures, like, I was stacking my chips, and it was just me and my wife, and we didn't have any kids. So, yeah, so I just was like, all right, I'm gonna do that too. Like, at the worst case scenario, I can always get a job.
Right.
And I was extremely frugal and just bounced around a bunch of stuff. I did development at Duke. I did worked at this company, V-Strader tech company. That was my first iteration of like the tech entrepreneurial world.
Right.
Got fired from that job a year later because I didn't know anything about tech at all. That's a whole nother story. I mean, we can go into it if we got time, but like I failed. And then I had a mentor, Jess Lipson, who really put me on the entrepreneurship because growing up, I thought entrepreneurship, what I saw was Mr. Michael White. He would sell cookies and candy apples, but at the time I didn't know that he owned his own business and was taking care of his family. He was like literally what I considered like the epitome of what an entrepreneur was. And I just didn't know. So I was like, nah, man, I'm not trying to like sell like cookies and candy apples when they talk about entrepreneurship. And just like, nah, man, like me and my wife, we just built websites and we just use Dreamweaver and all this stuff. And literally he showed me back end and stuff. You just copy and paste before there was Wix and all this other stuff. You could just grab the source code.
Yeah.
Just by right clicking it, copy and paste it, and you can get the web page.
I got everything you need.
And so once I learned that, I was like, okay, I can get $900 a website. So I started doing that.
Right.
And then while I was doing that, going back to relationships, my boy Zach hit me up about Teamworks, and then the rest is kind of my story. So that's kind of how it all like played out.
I love it.
It's all the different nuances of trusting my gut and then not being afraid, just trying stuff because I'm young.
Right.
So if there is any time to risk everything is when you're young because
right.
I didn't have anything to lose, but I was ignorant to it. Like I didn't know I was going to lose everything. In my mind, I was like, ignorance I'm spending $14. When I tell you I was afraid of losing everything, I was spending $14 on utility bills. I was eating peanut butter jelly sandwiches, making that much money, literally. My wife hated it. She was just like, what is wrong with you? So my brothers would stay with me, and I told them, like, it was in the summer. I said, no AC. My brother literally had to take a cold shower and put the fan on so he would not be hot. Like that's how I was moving, man. So I was always extremely frugal. Like even to this day, I only wear black.
Right.
I wear the same thing over and over. So I keep a lot of those principles that I had back then to now. But yeah, that's how I made it work. From to answer your question of me being able to leave without overthinking it.
I love it. Talk about a little bit right now about where you are right now, 1888 Ventures. I want people to understand what it is you're doing and how dope it is. So give us a little backdrop.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, no worries.
For sure, man. So 1888 Ventures, we invest in emerging technology in the geographic areas of the Southeast, Midwest, and the Mid-Atlantic. How we define emerging technology is AI, prop tech, sports tech, fintech, cybersecurity, and industry 4.0. And we're early stage. So pre-seed, seed, and series A, predominantly focused on the pre-seed and seed stages. Not sure of like the audience that's listening to this, what that means in a nutshell is that we give money to companies with really cool ideas
Right.
before you raised over $10 million. And 10 million is a lot for a reason. So anything below that, we invest in those type of companies in those areas.
Right.
And if you live in those areas, we want to invest. So right now, we're currently raising a fund. Right now, I can't disclose publicly just yet until we, how that goes, the amount until we get some legal documents done. But we're currently looking for a lead to make that happen. And then, yeah, man, that's where the grind comes in.
I love it.
So yeah, that's what we're doing.
I love it. I love hearing about the journey. There's one thing I do want you to touch on is you spoke earlier about, being yourself. And, one of the things I recognized throughout the course of, our conversation, as you talk about from high school to college to iBanking to the entrepreneur route up until, you running your own fund, is how your concept of self has evolved, right? And like people always say, like the self is a moving target. I believe that. Can you talk about your awareness around seeing yourself change and also knowing when and how to change? Because I think those are things that people, especially you coming out of ball, you have an identity around one thing. As you're evolving, you transform into something else. And what's interesting about your story is I know people are yelling at you, but a lot of people I'm staying with the banking thing. You continue to, find different avenues to express yourself and fulfill yourself. Talk to me a little bit about, the evolving self and just kind of how that speaks to you.
This is probably one of my favorite questions because I'm a philosopher at heart, bro. So I love this. I love this stuff. And then when you come in town, we're gonna do more of these type of conversations too.
Sincerely.
So, man, that's a heavy one. I'll share something really personal. So,
yeah,
like, I've always been a strong. I've been guided strongly in my spiritual walk, and a lot of times I feel and I'm using that word intentionally, feel like I should be doing something else. And I trust my gut more than my brain and logic. So a lot of the things that you talked about where people do stay in banking because it makes sense, because it does make sense, it's logic. I just have a strong feeling in my gut that this ain't for me. And, I've always had this, growing up, I've always been like the underdog. I never was the cool kid. I used to be like the kid with the big glasses, bullied all the time. I kind of like can hide behind it because it's like, I'm doing well, a bit more, saying all that stuff. But I'm still that kid who doesn't care what people think now because I've never felt like people care what I think either. So I was just like, I'm gonna just do what I feel is best. So at every moment, from reinventing myself from high school to college, reinventing myself coming out of college, going into banking, reinventing myself from banking to entrepreneurship. I followed my gut. I read a lot of books. I asked a lot of people questions, and I really believe deep down the reason why I've been able to change myself is because of people. Even our relationship that we have now, like I've been changed just in this little bit of interactions that we've had and just being more stronger in my identity, as a businessman.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because, we're not going to go into technical stuff, but there are times where you and I we were in that meeting and we were saying some things going back and forth about what we're looking for. And you and I were on the same wavelength, got real technical real quick.
Right.
And I know like 90% of the room won't understand what we're talking about. But we're doing it in a way that was very congruent to us, if you know what I'm saying. And those moments I don't take for granted, and I lean into them, and I trust my gut when I lean into them, and when I do lean into them, I begin to take action towards those things and build accordingly, make adjustments, and that's where it comes. And it doesn't go without being hurt and things like that. I lost my mom in 2017. That also was another piece of where that transition happens, where you got to learn how to understand your perception of the world and how to understand like life is short. There's no time for you to try and make other people feel comfortable about your own decisions. So yeah, man, that's there's a lot more, but that question is so heavy and deep for me. It's like the root of the tree, where there's just so many ways that can go. But to kind of like pull it back into context to the original question, it really boils down to trusting my gut and then building with people and listening and paying attention.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, all right, brother. This has been outstanding, man. I've been having a great
My
time.
man.
I love it. Before we hop off here, how can we find you? What can we do? We've got your LinkedIn, your Instagram. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
The best way people reach out to me is two places. Right now, I'm trying to push my Instagram, like getting people to follow me at Charles Robinson. Twitter, which is now X, I guess. If you follow me on Twitter, I've been pushing out literally like the technical journey of what's been going on. So like right now on my Instagram, I'm going through this fit piece. Like I'm a person like do as I do, don't have to do as I say.
Right.
I'll show you better than I can tell you, like your mama tell you.
Right.
And then if it's just on the business tip and you just want to send me a note, LinkedIn, just hit me up on LinkedIn, Charles Robinson, and go from there.
Love it. Anything that we need to be on the lookout for? Anything is about to drop? I know there's not a rap album coming up, but like anything that we should be aware of, any new events?
No, I think this podcast, man. I think be on the lookout for,
Something
me and
like
Micah
the
doing more
offseason.
stuff in the future, man. I already see it. So there's a lot more stuff that's gonna be popping off.
Sincerely.
Like sincerely, for real. So, I say, follow our journeys.
Yeah.
Obviously, once you listen to this podcast, but if all of this stuff we talked about from an example standpoint, the folks that's listening, literally peep what's happening right now, right? You see us, we've connected over the, past few days or week or so, and we already having these conversations. Follow this story over time and you'll be able to see the blueprint. That's one thing I loved about Hov. Like he just did it and then you could just follow the road map. And I'm like, all right, peep the game.
Right.
So we may not be able to go on the podcast and give you technical skills, but be on the lookout for, what I'm doing, and then be on the lookout for what Micah's doing, and you'll see the blueprint on how we navigating based off of our actions, not through our words.
Balls. We love it, man. Appreciate you, brother. This was amazing. I'll check in with you. Shout out to 1888. I'm going to see you in Atlanta.
All right, big dog. Much love.
Right, brother. Peace.